Welcome to the Niche Pursuits podcast. Today we're joined by Nate Ginsburg with Centurica.com. Now, they are a due diligence service for buying websites and web-based assets. And so we have a lot to talk about with him today. Nate actually just recently acquired Centurica earlier in this year. And so, kind of start off the interview by learning about the acquisition process. A lot of things to learn from what he did in the acquisition process, how he came up with the concept, the process that he went through to acquire the company, some of the things he's learned, both good and bad, the mistakes he's made, the opportunities he seized in those first 6 months or so. We talk about how he financed the deal. Towards the end of the conversation, he outlines all the various financing options that are available for people who are looking to purchase businesses. And that's really where the interview ends up going. Nate has a pretty deep line passion for seeing business owners or people who are interested in owning businesses, seeing them kind of use growth metrics through business acquisition, right? So leaning into purchasing business assets and other businesses to grow their own business. And he walks through a number of different models from acqui-hire to making up for areas of deficiency to just using it as a pure growth tactic. He goes through different risks that they see when they are doing due diligence for deals, and different risks that all buyers need to be aware of when they're going to acquire a business. He has a couple of really great insights there that I learned a lot from. And then we do close off on how to think through the acquisition model and where it might make sense in the various businesses that are currently out there right now. Really cool interview, really got my head spinning around some different ideas for myself. I'm sure it'll also do the same for you. So sit back and enjoy. Did you know that texting is the most convenient way to reach your customers? We talk a lot about email marketing here on the podcast, but I often hear many of you say, hey, I don't really even open a majority of the emails I get. You also hear of social media marketing as being a great way to reach your customers, but we know that really only a small fraction of your audience will ever even see your posts. But what about text messages all at once? You can have two-way conversations with them, and you can trigger automated text messages for things like appointment reminders, text for info programs, sending files back and forth, pretty much anything that you can think of. Plans with simple texting start at $29 a month, but you can get a special promo by being a Niche Pursuits listener. Text niche to 823-2TRY-SMS, and you'll get an additional 500 credits added to your simple texting account. Let me read that to you again. Text niche to 833-287-9767, and you'll get an additional 500 credits with simple texting. Welcome back to the Niche Pursuits podcast. My name is Jared Bauman, and today I'm joined by Nate Ginsburg with Centurica.com. Nate, welcome.
Hey, Jared. Thanks for having me.
Welcome. We have a lot of things that we get to talk about today. We were talking before we started recording, and there's so many different ways we could get some value out of what you have to offer. I'm really excited about the direction this one's going to go. Before we dive into some of the topics of the day, can you spend a couple minutes and just catch us up on your business past and where you're at maybe right now as we start talking?
Yeah, absolutely. And so yeah, I think like broadly, we're very excited about acquisitions and talking about and helping people and showing people different ways of growth via acquisition, strategic acquisitions, and kind of like, busting some myths that I think a lot of people have around that and really showing people what's possible when it comes to acquisitions and demystifying some of the process. And so, how did I get to that place? So my background, I moved to Southeast Asia at the end of 2013, freelancing, moved to Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. And there was really an amazing community of online business entrepreneurs, expats that were living there that became my scene. And, fast forward a couple of years later, met amazing people, learned a ton, and knew some people that were doing e-commerce and selling on Amazon. I was dabbling in a bunch of different businesses and business models, and it was looking for something that really would, be like stick or hit more than, I was doing some consulting, some, services, and yeah, then got into Amazon FBA, which like was the first business that really kind of took off for me. Through that, I built a really great team to manage that business, and so that's one of my kind of like core competencies is around people and hiring and leadership and remote teams is like I really love and have a lot of experience with. And so grew that business, sold that business in 2017. And then after that, mentioned had this, a core of a really great team and started offering services, which became my other company, Sellerplex. And so now, fast forward, Sellerplex is a variety of services for e-commerce sellers. We Amazon account management, supply chain management. We have a content team. It's a team of around 70 people globally. Wow. And with Sellerplex so in the summer, maybe the spring of 2021, Sellerplex started to get into some due diligence projects. And so for those that don't know, due diligence is like the vetting and verification process when you're doing an acquisition. And so let's say you have a business that you are, that you're looking to buy, you have an LOI or a letter of intent in that business that basically says like, hey, I'm interested, I want to buy you. And then you enter this phase called due diligence where, open the kimono, go through the books, really you're diving through the business to, make sure the numbers are what, the seller says it is, identify, risks and problems, as well as kind of building the value creation plan and kind of the integration plan, for the acquisition thesis. And so Sellerplex started getting into due diligence projects. And yeah, like, there was this huge, we're still in it, it's cooled off, but this big FBA aggregator boom in
Right.
2021. And so our projects really were growing. And I knew about this other company, Centurica, that really was like the leader in the space. Really strong brand, been around since 2013. And yeah, like I kind of had in my head, like, oh, like maybe this could be a cool acquisition, for me. And so long story short, one day I knew one of the co-owners reached out, hey, like, let's catch up, let's have a chat. Turns out, they were open to, entertaining an acquisition. I was interested, which really kicked off this process, which lasted about 6 months. I used financing, so primarily of SBA, which then, culminated in the close of the business. The end of April, beginning of May was when we finally closed. And so that's, and then fast forward, been running, integrating, taking over Centurica, which yeah, provides due diligence services. And so, we're working with people that are buying online businesses, e-commerce businesses, content businesses, SaaS businesses, agency businesses. And this is kind of become my world. And, like we were chatting about earlier, just like all my calls every day are, with leads that are interested in acquiring businesses or clients that are in the middle of deals or talking about engaging us for help or connecting with other people in the industry that are interested in doing acquisitions or have done or this or that. And the more that I dive into it, it's really, it's a fascinating world. And what really excites me, or one of the things that really excites me, is if you go up the value ladder, M&A, big public companies and private equity firms, they've been doing M&A for a long time. This is a very established, business strategy. And what's really interesting, and I think and is exciting for us and the listeners is, a lot of these like M&A used to be kind of reserved for like public companies, investment bankers, private equity firms, like very like a different level of operator. And now like M&A is kind of trickling down and becoming a lot more available. And people are doing some really cool moves with these, our kind of small online business space, whether it's, less than $1 million or more than $1 million or, multiple 7, 8 figure businesses. there's a lot of moves that people are making now, whether you're small, medium, large, that yeah, I think is super exciting, and a lot of really cool possibilities when it comes to M&A that a lot of people candidly, aren't familiar with and don't know about. And so I think, yeah, that's a lot of what I'm excited about, is to be able to help, educate and explain some of these cool opportunities that people, you don't know what you don't know. And a lot of people just haven't been exposed to these things. And yeah, hope that there can be some, light bulbs or insight or, new ideas with people when they do understand some of the things that could be possible with M&A.
Well, we talk a lot on the podcast about acquisition as maybe an opportunity to get into a market. Acquisition is an opportunity to bolt on to a brand you already have. And you've kind of touched on each of those. I'm curious for you, did you see Centurica as like a bolt on to the company you were already running? Or did you see it as just a completely new opportunity? And so now you're really targeting and going after two different demographics with your two companies?
Yeah, good question. So I originally saw it as, so Sellerplex has a much bigger team and infrastructure, but Centurica has a much stronger brand and, lead flow. And so I thought that, and Sellerplex was doing, and still, I mean, now it's under Centurica, but like, was doing due diligence services. And
Right.
so
You
there
mentioned that.
was, some kind of, I mean, I thought that like, oh, I'll just, I buy the Centurica brand, which has, been around for a really long time, pretty well known in the space. And I'll just plug in my, due diligence department, and, that would be the transition. I'll tell you, and can talk about like mistakes that I made or what I would do differently, because looking back now, there are a number of things that like, have identified of what I would have done differently.
Never does go quite according to plan.
Yeah, right. And so, but everything, it turns into, learning and growth, and so yeah, I mean, Centurica has, it has a lot of leads. It has a lot of, it's got a, medium-sized email list. And so yeah, the thought was that Centurica would be the kind of like the beachhead that opportunities come to. And then yeah, Sellerplex could be like a back end. We're working with, and this is, there are some synergies here where like we do due diligence on an e-commerce business. And I had a call with a guy yesterday, and he's looking at an e-commerce business, and he has a sales background, and he's trying to buy into e-commerce, but he doesn't, supply chain, logistics, POs, freight, all this kind of stuff. So that's a big concern of his. And like we had a call, and I'm like, look, if interesting, or if needed, Sellerplex has like a 20-person supply chain department. We do a lot of freight logistics. It's like, I know we can solve that problem for you super easily. And look, like, he can, there's a variety of ways that he can solve that, learning curve, but like Sellerplex is an option. And so yeah, like there are, and, have been, and I think will be more opportunities where we can, yeah, Sellerplex can provide back-end services, but also a lot of it's like, yeah, Centurica is a more established brand. And so whether it's for me personally, that's opening up a lot of interesting introductions, relationships, conversations, and kind of just giving me like a, I'd say a crash course in just M&A, because this is what I'm, doing and seeing all the time. And it's forcing me to just get on that level, which, I think is exciting and opens up a lot of more opportunities, in my career to do more M&A.
Let's see, if I do the math right, you've had Centurica for what, 6 months maybe? I mean, it hasn't
Yeah,
been
right about.
that long. What are some of the early wins, or, the early successes or gains you saw? You touched on some of the challenges. Maybe you could share some of those with us too, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, looking back, I mean, man, it's been, honestly, it's been a wild, first 6 months of this business. The first big challenge and objective was really taking over the operations. And so the business was previously run, there was two co-owners, and one of them, Brian, he was like the main project manager, account manager. he had some support around him, but he was doing the majority of the deliverables. And I knew this going in, that, oh, replacing Brian, getting my team in, I knew that going in, but we can say, like, area of learning number one of really, underestimating what it takes or needed in order to, match the deliverables at the level that Centurica is, the standard that, we need to deliver for our clients. And so, yeah, that's been, I mean, like, has been a big challenge. Certain people that I hired, you know, I thought were the right fit. Turns out they weren't the right fit. I realized that I didn't even fully understand, like, the degree of the scope of what was needed. And also, for context, due diligence deliverables are very, very tricky. Like, I have a lot of experience with service businesses. Sellerplex, we do PPC management, we do account management, we do content, we have a supply chain department. I'm a partner investor in another agency that does, PPC. I'm an advisor to, a Facebook marketing agency. Like, I have a lot of exposure into, services, and, like, the deliverables for due diligence are by far the most difficult. It's audit accounting, and so we need, like, X big four auditors, which I'm learning about, but I don't even know if this audience of, like, online business, big four are these, really professional, accounting consulting firms, Ernst and Young or EY, PwC,
I was going to say
Deloitte.
PricewaterhouseCoopers. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, our work is the core of the deliverable, which I can also get into, of, like, what the core, the DD scope is. It's rebuilding and matching a P&L. So let's say, you're buying a business and you're hiring us for due diligence. The seller is going to give you their P&L, their profit and loss statement. And let's say it says it's $1 million business with $250,000 profit. And so, a core part of the scope is you're hiring us to verify that. And so we got to go in, we get access to all the the channels, their Stripe account, their AdWords account, their this, their, Amazon, Shop, wherever they're selling and wherever money's coming in or out, we got to get access, plus their bank statements. And, we're rebuilding their financials from scratch. And then, we're hopefully going to match it, but we'll see. It's, the seller said that, their profit was $250,000, but when we did it, profit was only $220,000. And okay, if you're paying at a 3x multiple, well, like, okay, there's a delta there. And so anyway, the deliverables are, it's like high level audit accounting. There's no margin for error, and every project is under, quite a bit of usually time pressure. And so the combination of everything, like, these are really difficult deliverables to deliver. And on top of it, like, it's intense, like, these are million or multi-million or 8-figure decisions that people are based, they're using our work to make these really, really important decisions. So they're just, it's intense. And so, the deliverable is really, really challenging. Like I said, that's been a huge learning curve. And, like, man, the first attempt didn't work. The second attempt didn't work. I think now we're on attempt, like, I guess this would be maybe 4, or like 3.5, 4. So roundabout way, the big win has been now finally getting, some people and pieces in place that, like, I can build around, and I'm confident, in being able to deliver the work. It's still a work in progress, but yeah, but I'll say, so this was a big thing. So I was at Burning Man a couple weeks ago, and, a couple weeks prior to that, candidly, like, I was stressed. I was getting pulled into account management, project management, it was hectic. And, fortunately onboarded some of these key people leading up to Burning Man. And I had this, Burning Man, was looming in the future, and, I'm stressed, and, like, can I even go? Am I going to have to cancel? Like, can the business handle it? And fortunately, just in the right time, got some of these people in place, which then allowed me to, take a step back, have my Burning Man experience. And, I'm not checking email, I'm not in Slack, you're totally off the grid. And then, yeah, be able to come back to a business that and look, it's still a work in progress. We're still improving, but, yeah, a big win of getting some of the right people in place now that I can build with and grow with, which yeah, was a huge challenge, and has made a lot of good progress.
Well, congrats. It's a big deal. It sounds like you were able to kind of keep some of the secret sauce that made Centurica so great while slowly starting to get better systems in place to allow you guys to actually deliver that complicated deliverable in I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like a more organized and a more repeatable fashion. And I don't envy you for having to try to figure that out. Let's talk a bit about what due diligence looks like nowadays. I'm going to go ahead and guess that the majority of people who are listening have either considered purchasing a business, looked into purchasing a business, or maybe already purchased a business. And it's a decision that comes with a lot of fraught and worry. I remember when I bought my first website, for example, I sat in the sidelines for at least a year because I just wasn't sure if the evaluators I was going to use to kind of measure things were going to be good enough, were going to be correct. So I'm sure there's a lot of trepidation that goes into that. What does a due diligence process look like? And what are some of the things you can share that you typically find that maybe the average business buyer wouldn't see?
Sure. So yeah, so when you think about due diligence, you can kind of think about three main buckets, I think, especially for this audience. So you've got financial diligence, you've got operational diligence, and you've got, it's called commercial diligence, but it's really like marketing, like market diligence.
Mm-hmm.
And so on the financial diligence, really the main questions that you're trying to answer is, are the numbers that the seller's presenting accurate? Is the profit is the profit that the seller is proposing, is that accurate? Versus, well, yeah, is that accurate? Is the business worth what, the seller says it's worth? So that's financial. On the operational side, it's looking at things like, are there any skeletons in the closet? Are there any, red flags? What are the risks? As well as getting into potential for value creation of we can save costs here, or there could be, I have a person who can, solve this problem. And so that's the operational. And then on the, it's called commercial, but really it's like the market diligence of where's the industry going? How is this business positioned within the industry? Is it a rising tide? Is it a falling tide? What are competitors doing? And that's also kind of more forward thinking. So you can think about the financials is really around the numbers. What's the value of the business? The operational diligence is like looking, inside the business, are there red flags? What can we improve? What can we optimize? And then the commercial is more like outward looking, what's the market look like? What's the competitive landscape? What's the vision potentially for this business, moving forward? And yeah.
I'm just curious, do most of the deals that you guys are doing due diligence on, do most of them go through, or do a lot of them end up falling apart for a variety of reasons? We have no idea how many actually end up going all the way to the finish line.
Yeah. So most of them do go through. The thing is, there's a lot of reasons why a deal doesn't go through. And I'd say on the deals that we work since my, tenure as CEO of Centurica, yeah, there've been a number of businesses that haven't gone through, but I don't think any of them have actually been where it's like, we do the diligence, or like, hey, this is a huge red flag, abort. It's more for other reasons of financing falling through, or, having some legal, APA purchase agreement, things that they weren't able to come to agreement on, or yeah, or just more like the relationship between the buyer and the seller sort of deteriorating.
Mm.
And so yeah, we do see things not go through, but yeah, but it hasn't been as much where it's, I mean, and yeah, there is, like a core of our scope, like I was mentioning, is really, getting into the numbers, verifying the P&L, and identifying the deltas where it's like, hey, look, your cost of goods, you said it was, $4 a unit, and our cost of goods is 450, 50 cents higher, and that, you know, you're selling 1 million units, so this is like, $100,000 or five, and so, really getting into the, yeah, like diving into the deltas and understanding the deltas, and something also to understand about, due diligence, and just buying a business in general. It's not about, like, there's, everything has risk. It's not about finding an opportunity with no risk. It's about understanding the risks and being comfortable with them. And
Mhm.
so, and what that means depends, a ton on who you are and your experience and what pieces you have. But again, it's like in due diligence, because we'll identify risks in a business, but that doesn't, again, like, that doesn't mean that it's like a no-go and, abort. It's just, okay, are, do you understand the risks? Are you comfortable with it? And so yeah.
Speaking, it's great transition. Speaking of risks, like what are common risks or red flags that buyers, I guess, should be aware of, or at least be
Sure.
cognizant of going in?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say some of the biggest ones. So if I'm buying a business, I'll tell you, the risks that I'm on the lookout
There you
for.
go. Let's go that route.
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of it depends on the model. And yeah, some examples. I mean, one of the most common risks that I have since become much more intimately familiar with through my experience, and that's what they call key person risk. And so with Centurica, and so this is going to be, I mean, it's applicable to a lot of business models. With Centurica, the key person risk was around, the with Brian being, this main operational person and having to replace Brian. And yeah, this was something, again, like I was aware of it. I knew this risk, but honestly, I didn't appreciate, like, how much of a project or challenge this was going to be. And that's on me. And so looking back, like it's ironic. I should have done much better due diligence on this key person risk that, I mean, I since have learned. And so, but yeah, so this is applicable to agencies. It's applicable. It's really, I mean, to every business model. So if you have, you know, maybe it's a, whatever, it's a content site, or it's an e-commerce business, and the owner is just really well connected in the industry, and gets all of these deals and opportunities because they, have all these friends, and so like that, yeah, that's also key person risk. And so, agencies, yeah, software, but the owner, like, is the one who built all the code and understands the code, and he's the only one who really gets it. So yeah, key person risk is a big one, and that's relevant
Mhm.
for any business model. Some other ones that we look at is, really like revenue and margin trends. And so we see this a lot in e-commerce businesses, especially FBA, where Amazon fees are rising, the product price that you're selling at is decreasing, your margin is going down, your ad spend is increasing, your cost to acquire, like, and so these are trend lines also to really be aware of. And this is really for any business that is fueled by paid media. um
Yeah.
that's a big one. So looking at, oh, like, what is the ACOS over time, or yeah, looking at the Facebook ads or the Amazon ads or the Google ads, and just like, how are those, what do those trend lines look like? And looking at this, I mean, if it's e-commerce, you want to look at it like even on a per product basis, because it's one thing, oh, maybe the portfolio, the brand as a whole, revenue's up, and costs are moderate. But maybe within that, there's really like 3 SKUs are doing amazing, and 3 of them are tanking. And so yeah, like getting optics really into margins and revenue trends, profit trends. Those can be big. Yeah, I'm going to take a real good look at those. Another big one is looking at like customer concentration. And so this is more
Oh,
getting into like market diligence, sort of like, okay, well, so let's say you're it's a niche site for car dealerships. And it's like, okay, well, like, your main advertisers are car dealerships, and, you get paid because they're advertising with you, or what you're doing lead gen for them. And then it's like, okay, well, the economy, like, who knows what's going on, where it's going, recession, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, well, like, how is that going to affect this industry? Or, oh, like, what happens if the economy goes into a recession? Like, what does that mean for, the market that we're serving? Is that going to go up, down, sideways? And so yeah, like being aware of like, what industry is this business, operating in, or what's the client, maybe you do, maybe it's AdWords, and, AdWords, as a service is, yeah, it could be up or down, but it's like, oh, like, what is the customer concentration that you're servicing? What is their, future outlook look like? And yeah, being aware of that is like another big risk. And so yeah, I think those are 3 big ones, honestly. Key person risk, customer concentration, and you know, margin and revenue trends are, I mean, yeah, three big ones.
speaking of trends, so and I don't know if you were behind this or if this was kind of getting published before you came around. I know there's a 2022 Market Watch update that you guys published, and it's got all this really interesting data about online business acquisitions. What are some of the trends around where things are going? And I've got to imagine, I mean, we're recording this, nearing the end of the tail end of 2022. So it's just been kind of a roller coaster of craziness for the last couple of years in terms of where you talked about FBA is going. You talked about where online businesses are going. I mean, what are some of the trends that you can kind of, breathe life into?
Yeah. So with that, so we've started publishing, like, sections of the report. We're finalizing editing. I mean, the whole thing's taken way longer than I thought, but it's getting closer to like the actual, yeah, publishing the whole report. But yeah, some trends, at a high level, we're seeing, over the last like 3 years, the volume of listings is going up. In some of the charts, there's data that suggests that, like, there's kind of been this like wave of increase in listings. And, for a while, there was also, this wave of increase in buyers and interest. But yeah, we'll see. I'd have to like, pull it up exactly, but I think like mid 2021, or, early 2021, we kind of saw like a peak in terms of the, the delta between listings and listings sold was the smallest. And then moving on from there, the delta has been increasing. And one thing to note, the way that our data is collected, I mean, it's not perfect. We don't have 100%, we don't have data on 100% of transactions. And the way that it's also, the data is collected, it skews towards, um the way that our sold listings are calculated is, it's like sold that were listed in a period. And so if a business is listed yesterday, it's going to count as not sold in this period, versus if you fast forward 6 months from now, maybe it does sell. But anyway, but even with that, there still is some clear trend lines of, like, listing the percentage the delta of percentage sold listings versus, listings sold, there was like, it was smallest in, I think it was beginning of 2021. And then since then, that delta has been growing. And so what I think this means, and really if we're zooming out, this means a few things. And I mean, I think as we go into whatever the economy, buyers are becoming more discerning. Even 6 months ago, a year ago, I mean, you look at FBA, like people were paying outrageous multiples. If you had any product, someone would buy it. And now, and we know we're working with aggregators that like are more discerning. They're, yeah, like a lot of the ones that just bought anything and everything are struggling, and so the ones that are surviving are, more discerning. And so yeah, so if you're looking to sell your business, look, there's still buyers out there for quality businesses for sure, but yeah, it needs to be a quality business. They're not just buying, anything. But then on the flip side, and what I think is most exciting is, for savvy acquirers, I think we could be coming into a really interesting, time and opportunities where, like, let's, let's be honest, like there's a lot of uncertainty out there and what's happening in the future and economy and the businesses and all this kind of stuff. And so that means that there are business owners out there that, are uncertain. They could be scared. Also, I mean, there's a whole other trend of just retiring baby boomers that own, all kinds of businesses that like, for a savvy and creative, investor acquirer, these can all equal opportunities. And so yeah, that's stuff that I think we're coming into. I mean, if you're selling, you got to have a really good business. And if you're interested in buying, there could be some really interesting opportunities for you to expand via acquisition, grow market share. What's the phrase? Be greedy when others are fearful, and be fearful when others are greedy. And like, yeah, now could be a time. There are moves to be made for people interested in growing via acquisition.
Talk about that a bit, because that's in essence kind of what you did. You with Centurica, you found an acquisition that you then bolted on to what you were already starting to do, and you harnessed a lot of efficiencies through that. What, like, give people an idea for how they can think through growth from
Yeah,
acquisitions rather than growth kind
sure.
of through
Organic
slogging it
growth.
away in the trenches,
Yeah.
if you will.
Yeah. So yeah, this is again, this is something I'm really excited about, and stuff that I think a lot of people haven't thought about as much as they probably, could or should, and stuff that I'm really excited to hopefully, spread more awareness of. But, I mean, we could say that you can use acquisitions to solve, whatever your biggest business challenge, you could use acquisitions to solve. And so let's look at some examples. Like, okay, let's say, you've got a great, content engine, but you're really bad at sales. We're like, okay, well, what if you went out and acquired a business that was already selling to your target customers that you could go out and merge or acquire or partner with, where like, okay, now, you all of a sudden have this whole portfolio of clients that you can, sell into. Like, oh, that could solve your sales problem. Or like, oh, maybe you're really good at sales, but operations is the problem. And oh, you could find a business to merge or acquire that. Oh, like they've got a great HR recruiting team and really good people infrastructure that, you could plug into and, take advantage of their systems. And, you can do your sales thing and grow on top of that. Um, and like you can bolt on different business models as well. So like, let's say you've got a content site and you have a big audience of, I mean, it works the best with B2B, but not even. I mean, it could be, let's say you have a weight loss, website, and you're making money via ads. And oh, what if you went out and acquired some type of a health coaching program, or, some service that helps people with, dieting or meal prep. And then, oh, now you have all this audience and traffic, and now you can just plug this, service or consulting or coaching, into that as well. And so, I mean, really, like, there's they're really interesting moves that you can make, depending on your business, your model, and what your, challenges and goals are. But yeah, those are just a few examples of, ways that you can, think of like, all right, like what's my current biggest challenge? And then like, what could I acquire or merge or partner with that, would solve that? Where am I strong? Where am I weak? And, how could I acquire to, balance out my strengths and, yeah, fortify the weaknesses.
That is a very interesting approach. I think a lot of people maybe think through acquisition in terms of just supercharging growth, almost like, well, I already do this well, we're already succeeding here. Let's go out and find more of that. But that almost flips the model on your head, and you're actually, where they call it like an acqui-hire, where you acquire the talent
Mhm.
that you were actually just trying to hire in the first place, but you get so many other things because you acquire the business on top of that. It kind of reminds me of hearing about that in the past.
Yeah, sure. I mean, acqui-hire, acquiring the team, that's also a strategy. But also to what you were saying, and you're right, there's a whole other, the more kind of classic like roll-up strategy
Right.
where great, you've got one content site that's doing, X dollars, and then, you buy another one and, maybe you can leverage some economies of scale where, okay, like you've got a great writer that you can now use to write for both. And then you acquire another one and, you have, now you're doing more volume and so your costs go down, and so there's some economies of so there's some savings as well. Well, so there's savings, but then there's also the way that the roll up strategy works is it's like a 1 + 1 + 1 equals 5 or 10 sort of thing. Because if you've got, let's just say for round numbers, let's say you got $1 million business, and then you've got another $1 million business, then you got another $1 million business. If you combine them together, the value, it's not going to be 3 million. It's probably going to be, I mean, we're napkin mathing, but it could be 4 million, 5 million, 6 million,
Yep.
depending on a variety of factors. But yeah, there are just kind of roll up opportunities for sure where, all right, great, I've got a good this business and I'm just gonna, bolt on similar, business models and similar companies that just to kind of grow our market share. That's definitely a move, as well as, you know, like leveraging infrastructure for cost savings or some of these different synergies where it's like, all right, great. Well, we're doing this business model really well. And if we go out and acquire another business, we can cross sell between
Mhm.
them. Like that's, yeah, I mean, so if you find that type of an opportunity, you still benefit from the cost savings and, just by rolling them together, you get a bigger pie, as well as, yeah, growing the business, selling to the different customers.
What are some ideas for where people can find business? Let's say that, someone's listening and they're like, man, I'm all about that. So where would they look to find them? Are there any there's typical places, I'm sure. There's
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
some non-typical or off the beaten path type of places. Like any ideas
sure.
there?
Yeah, so one would want to direct people to the Centurica Market Watch. So if you go to centurica.com/market watch, so that is our like listing aggregator, uh, you know, website or platform, and it, I think it syncs with maybe a dozen or 15 different business brokers, and you can sort by business model, you can sort by size, and that's just one centralized place that is yeah, aggregates listings. And so I mean that's a good place to start. Additionally, and I'll say like, most like a lot of my opportunities, they've come from my network. And so, y- you know, Centurica, I knew the owner and I reached out and that turned into an opportunity. I've made a number of other, investments or partnerships or advisory, and yeah, it's really like within my network. So that's another place, to look. And there's stuff like, I made a so recently, I mean, I know we've been talking about this, but I'm really excited about, growth via acquisition and mergers. And I'm trying to think of, okay, well, what assets do I have and how do they, fit together? And so yeah, I made some, social media posts and some people responded. And now I'm having conversations with people that like, are interested in exploring. And so yeah, a lot of it depends on what your, you know, I mean, what your community or audience or kind of personal, relationships are like. But yeah, but that's a big one too, of just, and a lot of it's just kind of, you can just make it known. And when you're meeting people, it's like, hey, nice to meet you. Oh, I own a content website, but we're really focused on growth via acquisition. Hey, have you ever thought about selling? Or you just kind of like start a conversation, and yeah, like, because the thing is, a lot of people just never thought about this stuff. And so when you bring it up, it's like, huh, like that's interesting. Like, maybe there are some things there. So
Like totally. I've sold two businesses in my life and I've never listed one of them anywhere. It was all just through relationships and talking and conversations. And yeah, it's a really interesting point that you bring up.
mhm,
Let me ask you about financing. Maybe to kind of start to bring us back to the conclusion here. You finance with SBA, but you said there's a number of different ways to think about it. I mean, you don't obviously you don't have to pay for it necessarily with all cash if you're sitting out there thinking about buying a business, thinking, hey, we're entering a season that could be really advantageous to purchase. What are the different kind of financing buckets or methods that you see people taking advantage of right now?
sure. So yeah, there are a number, and I'd say a lot of it really depends on the, like, what the relationship with the seller is like. And so a lot of it is honestly like, are they, using and being represented by a broker, or are they, or are they not?
Hmm.
And look, like, you know, I love brokers. We Centurica does a lot of business with brokers. Uh, if you're a seller, especially, there is a ton of value in working with a broker. And if you're a buyer as well, brokers, they deliver you great businesses. They're pre-vetted. Um, there's just like inventory available. It's way easier to find it. You go to the Market Watch, and those are all broker listed businesses. And so yeah, there's benefits to broker listed businesses. The challenge, however, is the sellers are probably going to be less flexible when it comes to deal terms, and how the deal is structured. And so yeah, so that's one thing. So, like, different options depending on if you're working directly with the seller or if there's a broker. um and that being said, you know there's SBA, which is one financing option that is, that's what I used. And so, benefit of SBA is it's pretty, it's cheap, it's low interest rate, pretty long term. You can get up to like $5 million. You only put 10% or so, down. And the so that's good. The disadvantage is it takes a long time. It's just ballpark 6 months.
Whew.
And you're also on a personal guarantee. And so it's like, if the business, for whatever reason goes under, you're personally on the hook. Um, Also, a lot of, like, not every business qualifies for SBA. So for SBA, it needs to be an American or a US based business with like 2+ years of tax returns. And you have to be an American with, tax returns and this. And so a lot of businesses just don't fall into that category for SBA. There have been popping up a lot of other, types of lending options. And so one is this company that, yeah, we're friends with, and really cool guys. It's called Boopos, Boopos. And this is like, it's acquisition financing. Um, so with Boopos, it's a lot faster. I mean, they still need to vet the deal. It's a lot faster. You're not able to, the ceiling or the cap on it is lower, and their rates are going to be higher than SBA, but it's faster, it's more flexible, and I'm pretty sure you don't have a personal guarantee. So there's that. There's friends and family, just kind of like yeah, within your network. Some other so that's kind of for, like, okay, like, how do you get cash? There's also some of these other, like, SBA Express, or there's some, like, different lenders that specialize in finding money, and interest rates vary, and some of them are available. It's like, if you have an existing business, you're more able to get lending, because you can kind of, like, yeah, you're more able to get lending for your business that you could use for acquisitions.
Track record.
Right. And it's just like if you have an existing business, yeah, it's easier to get because you can show, cash flow and profit and anyway. So, but then there's all these other more of like deal structure kind of things. And so this is where you can really get, much more creative when you're dealing directly with the seller. And so, so a big one is called seller financing. And so let's say I'm buying your business. It's a, $1 million business. And I can say to you, we're like, all right, look, I love and let's say you're running it and you know what, you just want to get onto new things and, you're tired, you want to move on. I can say, all right, look, Jared, I love your business. I want to help you to, spend more time with your family, move on and focus on, you've got your other project that you're excited about. All right, great. Look, you want $1 million for the business. I agree. It's worth $1 million, but here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you 10% out of pocket now. So, you can do that, go on vacation, whatever you want. And then, over the next 1 year, 2 years, you're going to get payments every month for, $30,000 or for, I mean, whatever, just making up these numbers. But, then it's just an earn-out portion where, okay, great. You're going to get, for the next 2 years, you're going to get monthly payments, or the next 5 years. A friend of mine sold a business a couple months ago, or maybe a year ago now. And it was like, he got about half, cash up front and then half on an earnout. So over the next 5 years, he's going to get, quarterly payments. And so that's a big one. Seller financing is like the biggest, or, certainly one of the biggest levers that you can, play with as a buyer to, decrease your cash out of pocket, but then there's other things of like, tying things to performance. So it's like, okay, we're buying at this valuation, and that's, with the understanding that like sales remain at this level. And so, you can have the payments tied to different performance markers where it's like, all right, look, if in the next 12 months, if the business maintains this level, you get this much money. If it goes down, it's this much money. If it goes up, you get this much money. And, really aligning incentives. And the thing is, when you're working directly with the seller, it's a lot of times it's much more of like a collaboration and a partnership. And you want to align. I mean, as the buyer, you want to reduce risk as much as possible. So that means the least amount of money out of pocket, as well as, tying things to different milestones where it's like, okay, let's say there is key person risk and you're going to need to, build a transition or replace people. And so, with that, let's say it's like, okay, there's a 6-month transition. So, okay, you're going to get, X%, at closing. After a 6-month transition period, meeting these requirements that, I have these people in place and these processes are taken over successfully, that triggers, another lump payment. And then, 6 months later, we look at, oh, is revenue matching this and that? Okay, that triggers another lump payment. A year from now, okay, like, are these metrics being met? That triggers another payment. And so, yeah, I mean, you really can get, there's an infinite way of structuring things and, to make it, work for you and the seller. And that's where you can, when the sellers are approaching it more of like a collaboration as a partnership, there's a lot more flexible with the terms and you can piece together things like, oh, okay, well, like, you want X money down and you're willing to do an earn out over this. And so like, I'm going to use Boopos and I'm going to get a chunk of money that goes to the down payment. And then there's, these milestones that I'll take the cash out of the business and then use that. And so, you can really piece together these different, financing, blocks to then, put together the whole deal.
A lot of options there. A lot of things to consider. Wow. A lot of ways people can get involved in a deal if they want. Nate, this has been awesome. The hour has flown by. Let's see. I know that you're at Centurica.com. Where else can people follow along with what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm fairly active on social, anything at Nate Ginsburg. Aside from business entrepreneurship, I'm, been doing yoga for 10 years. So you'll get some, handstand pictures and whatnot. And yeah, and I'd say for anyone listening, like I'm really just looking to, yeah, like connect with more people that are interested in doing cool, acquisitions and, growing via acquisition, exploring strategic acquisitions. And if any of this sounds interesting, just hop over to Centurica.com or, add me on social, send me a DM. And yeah, would love to better understand your business and, your business, what types of opportunities you're interested in. If any of the things that you heard, sound, were new or interesting or exciting to you, like, yeah, would love to hear because yeah, with Centurica, we're looking at a number of different, ways that we can continue to grow and continue to expand and, be of service to people that are looking to make acquisitions and yeah, would love to understand what's exciting for you and what you want to do and, hop in a call, we can jam and see if there's any ways to support.
Well, thanks so much for coming on board. Appreciate having you. And until we talk next time, thank you again.
Thank you.
Did you know that texting is the most convenient way to reach your customers? We talk a lot about email marketing here on the podcast, but I often hear many of you say, hey, I don't really even open a majority of the emails I get. You also hear of social media marketing as being a great way to reach your customers, but we know that really only a small fraction of your audience will ever even see your posts. But what about text messages all at once? You can have two-way conversations with them. And you can trigger automated text messages for things like appointment reminders, text for info programs, sending files back and forth, pretty much anything that you can think of. Plans with simple texting start at $29 a month, but you can get a special promo by being a Niche Pursuits listener. Text niche to 823-2TRY-SMS, and you'll get an additional 500 credits added to your simple texting account. Let me read that to you again. Text niche to 833-287-9767. And you'll get an additional 500 credits with simple texting.